Welcome to Women Who Brand, a podcast that spotlights inspiring women in the creative industry. I'm Alejandra Salazar, founder and CEO of CROING, which is part of the 0.1% of creative agencies founded by a woman. And I'll be your host today. This podcast is part of an initiative of CROING to inspire women in the industry by sharing the journeys and insights of those who are leading the way. Women Who Brand are creative, strategic, and visionary forces in the world of marketing. They make an impact in both the role and the industry as a whole, where through campaigns, storytelling, or experiences, they shape how people perceive, interact with, and remember the brand. In this episode, we talk with Jessica Padula, the Vice President of Marketing and Head of Sustainability at Nespresso US. Jessica is such an incredible and passionate woman. The way she talks about her target audience and how inspired she still is by the brand, even after 9 years working there, it's truly amazing. She said that the more aware you are of the power a brand has to make the world a better place, the more joy and purpose you will find in the work. Jessica also talked about building a personal brand and how challenging it can be at times because it comes with a lot of judgment, but also the reward it brings, starting with messages from people you have inspired, which makes it all worth it. We talk about reactive marketing, not just replying on Twitter when something happens, but actually anticipating and being exactly where your audience is gonna be, which is something Nespresso does perfectly. This episode is a must for all women who brand, especially if you're already at the top of your game career-wise. It will inspire you to start building your personal brand and being vocal about it. If it's daytime where you are, take this time to sip an espresso and join me in welcoming our next woman who brands, Jessica Padula. Hi, Jessica. I'm so happy to have you here.
Oh my goodness, that intro is so inspiring and I'm very honored to be here.
Oh my God, thank you for joining me. For those who don't know her, she's the Vice President of Marketing and Head of Sustainability at Nespresso in the US. Yes, those are the type of guests I'm bringing you here. I'm excited. When I upload the episode with Sammy Lambert, former social media director at Adweek, now at the Clio, you saying you love it, and that makes me super happy. So since then, I've been trying to have you here. I think we were both speakers at Brand Week 2024, but I mean, I know you from different conferences. My sister also, she's the VP of Sales and Marketing at CROING, and she's like, Jess, I love her. I spoke with her in Advertising Week, I guess.
We did.
Yeah, so super excited to have you here. You've been with the brand for nearly 10 years, right?
9 years this month, which is just crazy.
Wow, that's amazing. You lead all the marketing initiative and owning the local sustainability program, which we will talk a little bit more during the conversation. But I'm excited because, I mean, I follow you on Instagram mostly, and I see how you're building your personal, professional brand, and it's so inspiring. So we will also talk about it. So stop the introduction. Let's dive into the conversation. Jessica, tell me. I want to know a little bit about your early professional journey. What led you to pursue a career in marketing, and how did you feel about your current role at Nespresso?
I love that. Well, I'm going to consolidate probably 2 decades into as short of a story as I can, but I truly didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up, when I was younger. I think, I played around with being a dolphin trainer when I was probably 10 or 12 years old. But when I went to business school, I really fell in love with the creative aspect of business. And so I think by nature, you sort of move into the world of marketing. It's very hard to break into marketing. When you want to go brand side, I kind of knew I wanted to work for a brand and always loved to understand the role that brands played creatively in people's lives and meaningful roles in people's lives. And so I got my start in the advertising agency world. So near and dear to my heart, great training ground. I think it's an incredible place to grow up in the industry. Let's say you learn so much, you are in client services. You really have to learn soup to nuts and work with clients of all different types. So I spent about 5 years on the advertising agency side before making the move onto the brand side. I look back, hindsight is always 2020. I look back and maybe by design or maybe by chance, that was when I was making the decision to move brand side, it was also around the time that social media was picking up. And a lot of your traditional brand managers didn't fully appreciate the role that social media could play, or they had played around with it themselves. And I was sort of still young enough to be on the cusp of things, let's say. Yeah. So I moved into the world of brand marketing by focusing on social media, something, like I said, a lot of businesses hadn't really appreciated yet. So I was able to specialize, which helped me get a foot in the door. I did social and digital marketing for, probably around 5 or 6 years, kind of got my footing with a couple of different brands. I worked on food brands like Silk, almond milk and soy milk and Horizon Organic and things like that. And then I moved to Swarovski, totally different landscape, crystals, fashion, high-end luxury. And when the opportunity came for Nespresso, I started at Nespresso actually in a social media role. And 9 years later, here I am leading the department. And I think that's been a fascinating journey. It is a fascinating part of my story. It wasn't necessarily by design, but here I am. And I think a lot of people have asked me what's the key to that success. How did I grow in that time period within one brand? Such a vast growth. Part of it is the growth of the company. We've been on an amazing growth trajectory, and I've been able to grow my personal career alongside the brand and business, which is amazing. That we have leadership teams who recognize talent, who cultivate talent, and who trained me along the way. But also I think it's always taking your depth of expertise in your channel or your special area and then seeing the forest for the trees, being able to lift your head up and connect dots more broadly, knowing I love social media, I love content and creative and storytelling, but it was just one piece of a broader brand strategy. And so I always was able to kind of balance those two, depth and breadth, that I think has really been a key to getting me to where I am today.
Love it. Such a journey. And I love because social media is still in marketing, especially in corporate marketing, growing and growing. 10 years ago, people wouldn't take it as serious, I will say. Maybe after pandemic, marketers realized, okay, this is something. And now it's still like budgets, for example, it's not the same for social. I mean, I know, but it's awesome to hear that you came actually from the social media world and look at your role now. I mean, that also proved the importance of understanding socials, right?
Yes. And, not every brand or business maybe could see the social media person as someone more than that. And I certainly stretched and grew beyond that very quickly, both by design and challenge and opportunity. But you're right. I remember the days of the social media team was sort of in the back closet shooting products for Instagram because nobody knew what Instagram was or why it mattered. And now you can't even fathom that world.
100%.
Although the pendulum's swinging back, right? It's very authentic, very raw content that works on social. But maybe social was such an interesting place to grow up, let's say in my career, because you had to fight, you had to make a case for the business.
Exactly.
The ROI.
Yes.
So
I need to defend that.
Taught me something.
Since we're talking on case studies and stuff, I'm wondering, how do you know when an idea or an initiative is truly strong or could benefit the brand? Do you follow a specific process or is more of a feeling?
Such a good question. I think some of leadership does come down to gut and instinct and intuition. I think one of the hardest lessons you have to learn, and I continue to learn, is that you are valued for your skill set and your leadership, but there's also something I believe that's in your gut that you know when it's right. But I also believe in surrounding yourself with experts who are bringing you great ideas so that you can trust their recommendations and maybe fine tune with your instinct. That being said, from a sort of process and mentality standpoint, I think what I've also learned about marketing is there is this intersection between what a consumer is going to love and knowing your consumer really in depth. Not you might be one of your consumers, you might be a focus group of one, but really knowing what's going to work for your consumer, what has the potential to really drive business impact, and then how might there be something that's a bit more connected to a community, making it a bigger idea than just the single consumer and the single business impact. But there's some connection to a broader community, a cultural piece that you're going to tap into. And it's this perfect alignment across the three that I see when I look back at decisions. Maybe I can apply it a little bit more forward thinking too, but you align those three things together. And I think that there's some special sauce there where it really hits on all pillars.
Love it. So it's a combination. So now my next question is, you are now in a role where I guess your ideas are heard, right? Because you are actually in a leadership position. But many of our listeners sometimes are starting their career, some others, because we have a huge audience from social media managers or CMOs that listen to this podcast. Still, sometimes might be hard to make our ideas and voices heard. So through your career, how do you ensure your voice and your creative ideas are heard?
I think the first step is not being afraid to voice the idea. And I never want to skip over that step because I don't want to take it for granted that everyone feels comfortable and has sort of this psychological safety within their team, their organization. And we as leaders, I spend a lot of time thinking about how to make space for feedback, for idea sharing, for brainstorming, because I do really, as trite as it sounds, believe that good ideas can come from anywhere. I recall very early days of my career working in the advertising agency world where I did a lot of work on the phone with my clients who were in Cincinnati. I did a lot of work with P&G from New York City. And I was young, junior in my career. I wasn't traveling all the time, but I was on the phone with my clients a lot. And as you do, you're in a room with your team, your creative team, your bosses. And I would put myself on mute when I had an idea or a thought, both to not interrupt the meeting, or maybe I definitely didn't have the confidence to voice the idea. And I had wonderful bosses who I've since gone back and thanked many times over, who would say, take yourself off mute, say it to the client. Don't be afraid to voice that idea. And so I never want to take for granted, like the first step is just saying it. There's a vulnerability in it, not being afraid of what someone might think might be the wrong idea, even asking a question, right, to clarify so that you can come up with a good idea. From there, I think it's a matter of storytelling. At the end of the day, I think marketers maybe get their voices heard more because they know sometimes how to tell the story. We are trained communicators. We are trained to weave that beginning, middle, and end of the journey, walk people through how it feels, how it's going to look. Marketing is so experiential in that way. Obviously, I get lit up just talking about it, but I think telling the story and bringing people along that journey with you is sort of the second page. Being able to speak up, being willing to, put yourself out there vulnerably, telling the story. And then honestly, it comes back to repetition. Again, as simple as like those bookends of that sound. The other thing I've learned about leadership is sometimes you have an idea and you have to seed that idea. People might not like it the first time. You might need to bring it back up. You might need to tell a different story, regurgitate it, tell it a different way, or frankly, just repeat it. Sometimes we're all caught up in our own world, right? We all have our own stuff going on, and you might hear an idea the first time. You might be distracted. You might be thinking about something else. So being willing to repeat ideas or principles or your values or who you are, how you show up, I think it's really important to not be afraid of repetition. As boring as that may sound.
And I think also, at least in my experience, sometimes I have many ideas. My leadership team, they listen to the ideas, and majority of the time they like them. But sometimes I need them to own those ideas, right? To execute them. Because sometimes I have the ideas, but then it's like, who is gonna, do it? So what works for me, at least, is that I always present it or try to present it in a way like, look, this idea I have, but I think, like, if you think about it, and you think about this idea, to own it, to see if you like the idea. And then I go back, like, did you like the idea? I pitch it in a way, and then they sometimes, majority of the time, they're like, oh, this is happening, I like this, and they own it, and I do believe that it's their idea now. So I see a lot of my initial thoughts being an idea that now is their ideas instead of mine, and it works. It really empowers them. I see them thriving, and I don't know, it's just another advice on the same.
I love it. I love it. It's very like Matrix of you. You're seeding the idea, and then they think it's their idea. But it's true. I think that's a fascinating way of thinking of it, that an idea, if done well, is not this perfectly formed thing, that it's clay that we're molding together. Exactly. The more you can pass it back and forth, the idea gets better, but people also feel ownership of it. I've had a lot of conversations with my leadership team lately about, our heart and our passion and our drive for certain things. And it's interesting to hear people say, well, we need to know what your passions as the leader of the team lie, and we'll go chase after things. And I'm very much of the set point, but tell me what you're interested in, and we'll come together on it. So it's very similar to what you're describing. I think that's really interesting.
Thank you for sharing, because again, it's like how you work, how your brain operates in a way when you work. It's so helpful for our audience. So I'm always thankful for your time. Let's move forward with another one I love. I mean, we're both in the marketing world, and I know you're always looking for innovation, technology, trends to position Nespresso without losing its mission and vision, right? So what trend in marketing excites you the most right now? And how does Nespresso approach, for example, reactive marketing, or when something happens in culture, what's your ability to respond in real time? So one will be, what marketing trend excites you the most right now? And what's your approach with reactive marketing?
So I think the trend, and I always hesitate to use the word post-pandemic because we're so far post-pandemic, but the world has changed. And the role of experiential marketing and the online, offline connection, the ability for data and technology to connect both worlds, I think is really exciting for marketers, because first and foremost, I love in-person experiences. I think we all we're craving that for so long. And I think Nespresso as a brand in particular is a very experiential brand. We often say tasting is believing, of course, with a product that you actually consume. So being able to get out there and get into the hands, not just the hearts and minds, but into the hands of our consumers is really fascinating. And we have some really exciting things around experiential and tasting coming up this summer. Summer is a key season for us as a brand, as you can imagine, with cold coffee. We're really leaning into iced coffee this year. We have a lot of different ways to deliver iced coffee through a couple of different campaigns we're launching. I'll speak about one that is kind of the other trend, which is related, that I'm really loving in marketing right now, which is collaborations. So many things in the world of marketing right now are brands coming together and sharing equity, borrowing equity, leaning into one for something. And I've said before, I think the most interesting, the most powerful collaborations are ones that are unexpected. So things where you would not expect two brands to come together, and yet somehow they make perfect sense together, or they just stop you in your tracks and it makes you scratch your head and want more. One of those for us was a partnership that we launched almost 2 years ago with a fellow Nestle coffee brand, but not many people would expect two coffee brands to work together in this way, which was with Blue Bottle.
Love
Blue
it,
Bottle
yes.
is another premium luxury coffee brand. Like,
one of my
what do we have? Why would we work together, right? Aren't we sort of competitors in a way? And the reality was we came up with this amazing idea where our coffee experts, literally the people who create the coffees and the blends and understand the food science, sat together and said, what if we took the best of what Blue Bottle is known for, which is really bright, lighter coffee that's pour over forward style, and what if we combine that with sort of like the espresso, Italian heritage, crema focus that Nespresso has? What could we come up with? And it's almost like pre-competitive. It's not sharing our uniqueness. It's finding some harmony between the two. And so you pair that with experiential, and I think really powerful things can happen, because you drive something that people are so excited to try and taste and experience these worlds colliding, but you also do it in a way that's unexpected and that there's going to be some value exchange between the two brands. That I think is a fun trend, something I get excited about, and something as Nespresso we're really leaning into. We're in a fortunate place where I think as a brand we stand for a lot of things. You mentioned our sustainability credentials. We're a B Corp certified brand. We're really values led. We stand for that. We stand for premium quality coffee. We stand for amazing experiences and luxury lifestyle. And so we have a lot of places where we could play, and yet one of the ones that I think people wouldn't have expected necessarily is leaning into sports and golf. So for a few years, we've been testing into this world. A few years ago, we did a partnership with a live Netflix golf tournament called the Netflix Cup, which was really fun and fascinating and just a totally different world for us. And then we've continued that world of golf. And we recently partnered with Malbon, which is a golf brand that's it's very much bringing like a new age urban mentality to golf. And they popped up a house at the Masters tournament. And we served coffee at their house all week, had a whole lounge set up. And again, what has Nespresso got to do with golf? Well, it's in the morning. People want to start their day.
Exactly.
But also just this unexpected element of it has been really kind of fun to see how all those worlds can come together. And it's not a matter of just wild card. Honestly, why golf? It's really connected to our role that we play in the morning and to the driven consumer insight. We have this insight about our consumer that they're really driven. They're really well-being focused. They're active lifestyles. And so golf is sort of this perfect intersection, and we found our consumer kind of over indexes in that space. And yet we wouldn't have ever thought, if we were just staying close to the coffee industry, how would we have ended up there? So that just gives you a little smattering of how we approach things.
No, I love it. Thank you. And how do you approach reactive marketing? Like when something happens in culture, what's your ability to respond in real time?
Yeah, I go back to the days I worked in advertising when Dunk in the Dark happened with Oreo back in the Super Bowl. That was like the very original live cultural moment. I'm always a little hesitant of those things because I think they can be really fascinating, really exciting, and get a lot of eyeballs on your brand, but they can also be not impactful in the long run in order to drive your brand forward. You can have a moment, you can be the center of attention. It's very risky too, but it also, is it moving you forward in the way that you really want to, right? So being really clear around the brand strategy is the first step for Nespresso. Who do we want to appeal to? And what are we trying to say to them about Nespresso? And that kind of filters out a lot of the noise, if you think about it, where we're not just chasing the next relevant cultural moment, but we're really thinking about what are our consumers, what content are they consuming, and where might a brand make sense to show up? Where do we have value to add? So I won't say we're the most like culturally reactive brand, but we try to predict more where our consumers are really going to be spending their time and making sure we're showing up there.
Love that. Which is reacting. It's just not reacting in like tweeting, but it's
Style.
reacting still. But I always see Nespresso, I feel it's like where they need to be somehow. Sometimes you don't expect it, but when you see it, it's like, this is right. So I love that.
Yeah,
Love
I
it.
hope so. My team can take all the credit for that because they're really, like I said, going back to how you asked me about how you know an idea is good, it's really that consumer, the core of your brand, and is it driving business goals? And then is there a cultural piece of it? And if you have one, you're good. If you have two, you might be
Exactly.
even better.
Yeah.
But if you have all three, that's when hopefully people have that moment like, wow, I wouldn't have thought of that, but that's really, really smart.
Thank you for sharing. I'm excited talking to you. So I believe coffee is consumed mostly across generation, but which is the easiest and the hardest generation or target audience to reach right now for a company like Nespresso, and why?
We are lucky in many ways to work at Nespresso. I feel very lucky every day to work at Nespresso because you start with an amazing product that anyone can appreciate. Then you ladder on a brand that is really aspirational, and yet it's an everyday product. And that dichotomy of luxury and everyday is such a fact. It's really hard to come up with a brand to comp ourselves against because beautiful, wonderful luxury, but something you physically consume every day. So I think to answer your question, the most exciting from a challenge standpoint, I would say, is that late Gen Z audience. And the cohort of Gen Z aside, thinking about that moment when you are first deciding to live on your own, to rent an apartment, to buy a house, and you need to start stocking your own kitchen. That's the key, right? When you think about that's when you will buy into your appliances and the systems that you are going to commit to for a good amount of time. The obvious place to go is wedding registries and things like that. That may be, let's say, low-hanging fruit because you want to be on every wedding registry, you want to be on every Pinterest board in kitchens when people are designing their kitchens. But I think what's most exciting and kind of the biggest challenge for us right now is getting ahead of that moment of decision and targeting consumers who are not yet ready to buy your product. That sounds kind of crazy, but our coffee consumption habits are created much earlier than that moment where you're buying your appliances for your house or your apartment. They're created, I mean, more so increasingly in the US, coffee consumption is starting in late teens, maybe mid-teens. That's coffee shop culture that's starting with very sugary, very flavor forward, cold iced drinks. And that's not a world where Nespresso used to play. For decades, we played in the very short black espresso cup. And so it's been a very good challenge, but a very good opportunity to find how to become both relevant culturally to those younger consumers and yet not try to force that that's where most of our source of acquisition is going to come from because they're not quite ready for it. They have to love the brand and believe that we could deliver the type of coffee that they want to consume
The moment they're
forming those
ready.
habits. And then when they're
Love
ready,
it.
that's when you strike. So I would say it kind of answers both of your questions, which is it's a really big challenge because we didn't used to offer the types of product that the newer consumer is really looking for. Increasingly, we're really focused on cold and flavors and even accessories that they can buy into. This is a fun story. We have an iced coffee tumbler. It's a clear tumbler with a straw.
Okay.
And it's an amazing product. It's very entry level. Anyone can buy it. You don't have to have an espresso machine to buy it. And it's just so cute and Instagrammable, I guess TikTokable. Very cute, really great for iced coffee. And it's a to-go mug, right? Basically for any kind of beverage. We launched it knowing we wanted to round out our portfolio of cold coffee offerings. How do you consume Nespresso cold coffee? It has become, I think it's gone viral 3 or 4 times because an influencer will discover it. They love it because it's a great product. It doesn't require that you buy a machine. So it perfectly taps into that audience, which is Nespresso's a cool brand I'm ready to buy into, even if I'm not yet going to buy an appliance. And so that's become a really interesting way to overcome that challenge that we discussed. But it's still a challenge because let's be honest, we are a premium product. We are premium price. And so the reference point for our price often is compared to other single serve competitors, of which we are typically higher priced. But if your reference becomes that out of home coffee that you were once consuming, your $8, $9, $10, $12, latte, macchiato, crazy things, right? Then your reference point is actually that we're quite frugal and we're quite valuable.
Exactly.
So it's been an interesting challenge. All of these factors of what types of coffee they consume. Do we offer the right products? Do we have the right accessories or entry-level products to bring them into the Nespresso brand? And then how do we create the value for money that's really going to create their consumption habits and patterns over their life as they get older.
It's such a journey.
Marketing challenges.
Yeah, because also sometimes for some brands, it's okay, this is the audience and we'll need to reach them in all the points, right? Like awareness, engagement, and that. But I love that you have this one that the end goal for now, or at least for a lot of years, is awareness and love mark.
Relevance.
Relevance. So I think it's just in a way like fun to play around and to understand. I don't know. And it also prepares you to what's coming, because at the end of the day, they will become, the ones that consume. So if you understand them earlier, it will help you in the years. Love it. So now I want to talk about your personal brand. I told you already, I love your content. I follow you on Instagram. What I love the most about it is that you can see everything in a way, like you can understand your role, which is such a high role in such a big company, and at the same time the human being behind, right? And like the things you love and that are not necessarily connected 100% with what people will expect, right? A role might be. So as I said, our audience include many women in the industry who hold high-level leadership positions, and yet even with all their knowledge, experience, it can still feel challenging to put themselves out there to start building their professional and personal brand. Which is, by the way, the reason I also started this podcast, because me being a speaker in different events, I have the access to listen to women like you and like learning from you. But those tickets sometimes cost a lot of money, and it's not easy to have this access and this conversation, or at least to listen, because not only because the cost of the tickets and stuff, but also because there aren't many in comparison to other fields or so on, like women to actually like sharing what is it to build a company, right? So when did you decide to start doing it? What helped you to take the first step? And what's something that is already a win for you that happened so far that you are grateful already with the trajectory you have been having? Because again, I want to double down here, because to be in the role you are, and so many CMOs that might be listening, or VP or etc. in marketing, they build their brand within the company, because it's kind of the only way to be where you are right now, but not outside. So I want to hear from you so they can also like get inspired a little bit.
Alejandra, you have no idea how much this hits to my core right now, because this is something that I don't want to say struggle with, because that makes it sound really negative, but I think about this a lot, because I don't know how else to be other than very authentic and very open. That is in my personality. That is not a strategy, let's say, for building a brand. But with that openness comes a lot of vulnerability, which opens you up, of course, to judgment. Internal people wondering why you're using Nespresso as a platform to build your personal brand. People who know you personally wondering why you're talking about work on your personal Instagram. It's something I think about a lot. I hear feedback on it a lot, and I process it a lot. But to answer your questions, about a year ago, a little more than a year ago, I was asked to bring in, or help bring in, a speaker for our company town hall. And we said, we don't want a typical speaker, corporate leader type speaker. What else could we do? And I said, well, you know what? One thing I personally struggle with as a leader is being a working mom and juggling these things. And I have this woman who I had found on Instagram. You probably follow her too. Her name's Janelle Tavis. She is the chief commercial officer for Bugaboo. And I had a wild idea. At the time, I think she had around 30,000 followers. I was like, I don't know if she speaks at company events, but let's ask her. And I did. And she said yes. And she came. She's a fan of the brand. So she did it. It was one of her first paid speaking engagements that she did sort of outside her corporate role, but she said yes because she loved the brand. Anyways, long story short, she is incredibly inspirational. She has since grown her page to 100,000 followers. I don't aspire to be Janelle, but the point is she opened my eyes to a world where personal and professional brand can coexist in an interesting way. And I also talked to her a lot about like continuing to learn the business through your own brand building, continuing to learn how influencers are working, how they're making money, this is part of the industry we live in. And I believe wholeheartedly that if you are in social, you can't understand what consumers are experiencing in social. So that inspired me about a year ago. Like I said, I don't have aspiration. I don't have any end goal. I'm not trying to be an influencer or a content creator, but I do find that the reason I've kept going and the reason I continue to share amidst the judgment or questions that I do receive, let's be honest, the more you put yourself out there, you do receive those. The reason I continue is because of the feedback that I get, the DMs that I get from people really genuinely telling me, please keep going, please keep sharing. I don't get this content. Nobody is really sharing what you just described, both worlds and how they collide and how it is a struggle. It can be hard. It can be amazing. It can be wonderful. It can be glamorous. It can be all the adjectives. I get a lot anytime I share something very openly, a lot of feedback that makes me realize this is the advice I wish I had gotten when I was coming up in my career. And it's a little way of paying it forward. So it's wonderful. However many people, I don't have that many followers. It's not that big of an account. It's not the point. But the point is the people who I do talk to or touch or share with, I hope it leaves them with a better understanding of what the expectations in the world are, what they can look like, how you can change them, how you can craft your own world. It's an interesting part of my life right now because it is fulfilling. I do it completely outside of my work hours. I first have to be accountable to my job, my full-time job. That is what I get paid for. That is who I am, being a mom and being in my job. And then there's the found time, but people will always judge you for, I chose not to watch TV. I don't watch TV hardly ever. The time other people might use to work out, I also barely work out. That's when I do my social media.
But it's a job,
But people don't necessarily understand it, and it's very easy to kind of see it for what they see it for, good, bad, or indifferent.
So I started this podcast because my sister started a podcast, which is called Women Who Network. And she was like, for 1 year, Ale, you need to do a podcast. And I'm like, yes, but why would I talk? Like, what if they think? Because I'm building also my personal brand. Someone told me once that if you interview, then you won't get interviews like for yourself. And that stuck in my mind. And okay, so then I can interview. And then my sister was like, you need to do it. You need to talk. And I'm like, no. So she one day creates she's Women Who Network. She has record like 100 episodes. And she always shows me by example that I really need to do the things, right? And I'm blessed to have her in my life, in my journey, in the company. And she always told me, Ale, it's important that you create content because we have a creative agency and it's the best way to understand the agency and the world in general, at least marketing. And you say the same. What a blessed to have a VP of marketing that is actual a creator. And let me correct you there because you said like, I'm not a creator. You are, and you create great content. That's what it takes to be a creator. Like really have the idea, share, record, and just put it out there. And that's being a creator, and you are. And it's just so simple to talk to you about what's happening on social since you're a creator versus a VP of marketing that sometimes they don't even have social media in their phones, you know?
Yeah, so I really don't want to be out of touch. As someone who grew up in that space, I know I'm not, I don't know all the cool things. I'm not 20 something anymore, but I do see it first and foremost. That's why I started it. That's why I ever started it. And then the feedback has become a two-way street of the advice I wish I had, this sort of mentorship and a peek behind the curtain that I do feel like is separate from my day job, but my day job obviously informs my point of view on that. So it's a tricky, murky water to manage. It is for anyone who's kind of contemplating it, like think long and hard about that because you have to juggle the two, and it's not always
scary.
People will,
it's scary. It's scary. I mean, I won't stay longer because it's not a podcast about me necessarily, but honestly, to me, it's the same. I have like my relationship. For example, my husband, he's a musician, and sometimes I want to share his things, or I speak English and Spanish, and I struggle a lot. Like, should I do it in English? No, my audience is in English, so then I'll do like two. It's a lot. And my sister is like, you want to do it in Spanish? No, I will lose followers. And she's like, no, you will be out there.
But just be you, and the right people will find you.
Exactly. 100%. And I receive also a lot of feedback of especially Latinas that they see me and they believe they can become just because they see me.
Yep,
and that's enough for me to continue. Yes. So thank you for sharing.
Beautiful.
I was super curious.
That's beautiful. Thank you.
So we have 3 more questions. Well, I think we touched a little bit about it. You mentioned something, but just want to make sure we, talk a little bit more. We see some brands right now really trying to link into culture, entertainment, nostalgia, sustainability, in-person experience. Like there's a lot of things happening, and Nespresso is definitely one of them. It's really one of them that you think of sports. You guys are in sport. Nostalgia, sustainability, like your in-person experience. I was in the pop-up in New York in Grand Central Station that you invited me last time. So I know you are there. And I've just seen a collaboration with Macabezo, which is a Mexican creator in Cannes. So again, every time I think on Nespresso or I see things and then I saw you and I'm like, That's you should hear. It's good. So I love that, and I want to know, like, what are the challenges or opportunities that excite you the most about what's ahead for Nespresso? I think you mentioned already the collaborations and yeah, especially that. But I want to like specifically know, let's say, like this year, for example, you mentioned that you are like iced coffee and in collaboration. Is there something else you want to share? Because again, you shared a little bit already, but I hadn't here, so I wanted to ask just to make sure there is something else.
It's funny you say we're everywhere. We're so many places. One of our bigger opportunities as a marketing team and a brand organization is prioritization, because it is hard at scale as you grow to say no to great opportunities, but to be really focused and thoughtful about where to put more of your eggs, not in one basket, but in fewer baskets, and be really thoughtful about that. It's a conversation we're constantly having. I think the other space that we're really looking forward to diving into, which is connected to cold, and I touched on a little bit, is this idea of really owning that morning moment. Now, of course, every coffee brand wants to play in the morning moment. So really doing it in a very Nespresso specific way to become that coffee beverage of choice at home every single day. That is truly our opportunity and something we're thinking a lot about. That goes to, what is your mindset in the morning? What do you need in the morning? That's where athletes and sports comes into play. But it also maybe, what's the beverage of choice in that morning moment? Is it cold coffee? Is it coffee plus a benefit? We have a whole line of coffee called Coffee Plus, and it has added caffeine. It has different vitamins in the coffee, in the actual coffee pods. So you have one fewer thing to remember in the morning, right? So really thinking a lot about that daily consumption and what someone needs in that, the very trendy 5 to 9 before your 9 to 5 space, and what role can Nespresso play there. That gets me excited to crack that, because we mean something to people, and that taps into the emotion. And if you can tap into the emotion, it will be sticky.
That's exciting. That's exciting. So now let's go with our quick fire round. This is super simple. I ask you questions. You say whatever comes to your mind. It's like 6. Are you ready?
You ready? I think.
So, in person or digital experiences?
In person.
Commercial spot or social media?
Social media.
Who creates the company? The audience or the company team members?
Oh, the audience. Consumer first, always.
Communication in the US, Spanish, English, or both?
Oh, we need to do both. We need to do better.
I love it. So, what's the future of coffee sustainability? Recycle or reinvent?
Oh, you stumped me on this one. I think reinvent, but recycling comes first. One can't happen without the other.
Love it. Love it. And last one, your go-to Nespresso coffee to start the day.
Melozio. I have a Melozio, which is a gold capsule, full mug of coffee. Sometimes I do it iced once the weather turns. Every single morning, always a Melozio.
Love it. Love it. Thank you for sharing your answers. So to close this episode, Jessie, I will ask you 2 more questions. What does it mean to you to be a woman who brands? And what advice would you give to a woman in the creative industry?
I believe wholeheartedly that brands play a really important role in the world to inspire people to do things for better, to improve the world, that the brand itself, not just the business, can really be a force for good, to use a very overused phrase, but something we really believe in at Nespresso. And so to be a woman leading a brand that can have that power for people, for individuals, but for the world at large, it's a responsibility, and it's also fun. And that maybe leads to the advice, which is, if you're getting into the world of marketing and branding, I would hazard a guess it's not for the money, it's not for the prestige, it's probably for the emotions, the storytelling, the creativity. And the moment you lose sight of that, that's when it just becomes work. And so really making time for the fun, and all the stresses will always be there, but find time for that real center of what got you into it. Find time for that, whether it's in a personal Instagram account or a side hustle or whatever it is that lights you up. The creativity really has to be there, I think, to keep us all inspired and do the good work to make the world a better, more beautiful place.
Love it. Thank you so much, Jessica, for being part of this podcast and sharing such valuable insights and your experience with us. So thank you. And to all women who brand, listening or reading, remember, your voice matters and your creativity has the power to inspire and lead. Until next time, ciao!